Councillors, it's 7 o'clock. Councillors, so good evening. Can I welcome all present to this March meeting of Combe Council? I've got some apologies. I've got Councillor Robinson, Councillor Chamberlain, Councillor Wildman, and Councillor Howarth. Have we got any other?
Yes, Councillor Moffat.
Councillor Moffat. Okay. Declaration of interest. Has anybody got a declaration of interest on anything that's on the agenda today? No. We'll follow the next item is item 4, the minutes of the meeting. To approve a correct record, the minutes of the meeting held on Tuesday, the 18th of February. Does anyone have any issues with the minutes that were circulated? No. Can I have a proposer then to accept those minutes? Can I have a proposer? Councillor Thomas, and can I have a seconder, please? Councillor, hang on. Butterworth. All those in favour? Thank you. Item 5 is the clerk's update. So I'll hand over to Gina for the update. I think you've got a copy that was given out at the meeting.
Yeah, there's just a couple of things to update you on. One is obviously the bids have come back and we've got the data to review at tonight's meeting. So I've made a list of the locations where the devices have been previously, and also there's a list of the locations where we have existing backplates. So we just need to decide on 3 new locations for these devices.
Okay, is that it?
No, there's the secret garden, obviously the damage that we had to the wall. We did have a fence around the whole site at the top. We have now reduced that, so there's no longer fencing around the whole site. It's now around the wall itself. This is to give access to the flower beds, obviously, and the benches round, but mainly for people to do maintenance work on the flower beds. The Alkincoats Park bollards, obviously we had an issue with trying to get them in line, etc. That is actually being rectified and should be done by the end of this week. CCTV, Alkincoats Park, we finally got power and they are actually finishing the installation this week. So again, by the end of this week, we should have the cameras and the lighting in the park. And the last thing I want to update you on is yesterday we had a visit from Stephen Sykes, who's from the Chamber of Commerce. He came to do a net zero review from the town hall. I probably will let David update you, but the main thing is he basically said that the main inefficiency with the building is the heating system, which obviously we knew that anyway. But he did say that unfortunately there aren't really any other options that will work with the building. He said, unfortunately, it looks like you're going to have to replace gas with gas. So he did obviously advise on putting a more efficient system in, more efficient boilers, and ways obviously to control certain zones and areas, and also to control the temperature of the water that's running through the system because it's extremely hot at the minute. He also mentioned putting lights in the cellar on sensors so that they're not on all the time in the corridors and just come on when people walk past. He did say that the glazing on the windows is very effective. So he was surprised at how effective it was. Yeah, so, but David, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Not sure what I can add to it, Chairman.
There was this thing about the diocese.
Gina's sort of covered most of it. He did say if we went for the biofuel, we would have a problem mainly with storing of it, because as we all know, there isn't, you know, anywhere where we could store 2 or 3 weeks worth of fuel, which is what we would have to do, wouldn't we? We'd have to store it somewhere. So being where we are, with no yard or anything, so that would be a problem, and he thought that were a non-starter. He was amazed at the diameter of the pipework, which is the main problem, and he actually agreed with us that if we had radiator stats on, which we have on some of them, when radiator turned off, pipes are that big, they'd still be churning heat out, and there's not a lot you can do about it. And like Gina says, he did mention the temperature of the water, and we don't think we can control the boiler outflow temperature on those old boilers. And as you all know, the modern boilers now, they work between 55 60, but the temperature coming back into the boiler, once water's circulated and it starts coming back warm, to save fuel, obviously, it knocks the burner off until the temperature in the pipework drops a bit and then comes back on. So in reality, our boiler's running flat out all the time, whereas if it were running on correct temperature flowing through the boiler, half the time it'd be knocked off because it had reached temperature on boiler for water going circulating, and we're losing a lot there. But so new boilers would be more efficient and would save that, but we still have the problem of the big pipework. And I think he suggested that the pipework, if we change that, it's probably as much as the price of the boilers again, isn't it?
Yeah.
It virtually
Yeah.
doubles everything up. But I think we're going to have to do something, and we need to try and make us mind up sooner rather than later, because I know it's only March, but it soon gets into July, August and September, and if we're not careful, this summer will have gone and we'll be starting the winter again and back where we were with inefficient boilers. And ideally, if we're going to decommission them and put new ones in, it wants doing it summer when they're not being used, won't it? Ideally. So I think we do need to come to a decision, but I think we might have to just go initially for the boilers and save what we can, and then do work on the other.
He did actually mention that the high ceilings obviously don't help.
Yeah.
But he did say that putting ceiling fans in is quite effective. So that was another option. That
You'd have to have a couple of fans there, slow rotating, that were in keeping with this sort of building, that looked, you know, the age of the building. They look the right age of the building. You're not putting modern fans up, but they only need to turn slowly, because all this to do is push the air back down. And he agreed that there would be a lot of heat up there that could be sent back down and warm the lower part of the room.
Yeah.
Well, we only touched on that briefly, but it's about what we thought, isn't it?
Well, the quote that we had for just replacing the boilers was, I think it was about 50,000. But then Stephen was talking about putting extra controls in as well, so that we can possibly turn the pipes off, etc.
Yeah.
He's given us a name.
Control over zoned areas.
Given a name of a professor at UCLan who's done a lot of work with old churches and things like that. And he said, I can't advise you anymore. You know, it's all over my pay grade. But he said, I'll get in touch with him, and you can get in touch with him and have a meeting with him. And he's done quite a lot with very old churches and changed their heating systems to more efficient.
He said he'd probably be able to tell us what will work and what won't
What
work
will
with this building.
Yeah.
So it sounds really worthwhile, albeit that in some sense, it's what we thought, but in a sense, it's sense checked it, hasn't it? He's a real expert, so it's helped us to focus down and take it to the next stage.
I think as a phase one, we've got to change the boilers, and then to get the pipe work down in the diameter, that is another ball game, and that needs to follow. But what I wouldn't like to do, and I don't think Sarah would for 1 minute, I wouldn't like to get rid of these big cast iron radiators in here and put the more modern ones in, because it wouldn't look right.
I don't know whether we discussed this, but there is a sort of belief that cast iron radiators, because they retain the heat for longer, actually are more efficient than modern radiators.
Is that yes, Dorothy?
I know nothing about this, but would air conditioning help? Some kind of air conditioning? Well, because, don't take this the wrong way, my son is an air conditioning engineer, right? And in his conservatory, because it gets very cold, he's put an air conditioning unit in, which also blows out hot air. So I'm presuming that's how air conditioning units work.
But it couldn't heat the whole building, could it?
No, you'd have to have more than one, wouldn't you? But and I don't think they come cheap either. That's why I haven't got one. And they're very modern, of course they are. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, is that information? It's interesting, and we know where we're going. Anything else, Gina?
No, that's it for my update.
Okay. Well, item 4 would be public forum, but there's no public here, so we can go past that. Oh no, it's not number 4, is it? It's number 6, sorry. Item 7 is report from the borough and county councils. Again, we've got 15 minutes allocated for any issues concerning Colne. So I'll start with Ash.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't have an awful lot to report, but I'm hoping that everyone has received a copy of the Lancashire County Council newsletter that's been published. It should have come through your door. It's quite an interesting newsletter because it's got lots of different stories that have happened over the past 12 months, 18 months, thereabouts, but it also identifies the County Council's plan for the next 12 months as well. So it's kind of plan of action and a bit of a review of things that have been going on. So it's a nice little read, and it's got my face in it, so it's even better. Really brings it to life.
I think Andy's got. Do you want to?
Yeah, it's actually a question for you, Councillor. Have you got an update on Queen Street by any chance?
So Queen Street so I'm presuming you mean it under the Levelling Up Fund.
Yeah, it's the
greener, healthier
the
streets.
meeting before Christmas, and it's just that we've had the residents have been asking me what's going on.
Sure.
I'm just wondering why you're here.
So it's currently with government. So Lancashire County Council applied for the money initially, and but that's almost like an expression of interest. And then you go away, you do all your plans, do all your consultations, and then you've got to go back with a fully costed business case. And the full business case is currently with government, so they're checking that out and making sure that it aligns with all of the priorities and within the Levelling Up Fund. Make sure that they're happy with it. It's due back any time. And then it's a case of things going out to tender and then appointing contractors to do the work, hopefully. I mean, I have no idea on timescales, but I'm guessing sort of work start in the summer. But they have indicated it could be up to 12 months worth of work, not just for Queen Street, because it's a bigger area than that, but the whole thing could be up to 12 months.
Would you be able to elaborate what work is actually being done? Because obviously the residents said they weren't happy with what was being planned. When we had yourself and
Andrew,
LCC, said they were going to go away, come up with another idea of what the idea should be, and let them know. But what you're saying there is we've gone past that, and it's gone to government to say this one. Yep. So what plans at the moment have we got for them? It's just so I can go back to them and say, this is what's happened so far, or this is the idea they're looking for Queen Street.
I have to be completely honest, I haven't seen the last lot of plans, but the comments that I got was that all feedback from residents on Queen Street particularly, because there weren't really concerns anywhere else, it was Queen Street that was the main thing. Pretty much all of those concerns were answered. So I believe that the parking is remaining as it was. There are speed bumps going in, so that obviously, you know, for safety. I think it's additionality rather than anything else. There's no trees going in, so it's kind of, it was, and I did say to one of the residents, I can't remember her name.
There was a few.
Yes, and I did say I think you've pretty much got everything that you wanted. So I don't think there'll be any disappointment. Genuinely, I don't mean that in a flippant way.
Yeah.
Genuinely, you know, they were
I
very
think the
happy to
concerns are
accommodate.
being listened to.
Yes, yeah,
It's just like I say, because we've not seen anything come back saying this is the revised plan or this is what we're looking at possibly doing.
yeah. There's
Because
nothing.
nobody's
There's,
seen anything. They're still in the dark, and we're still going. We've not heard anything either.
So with all of the concerns that have been expressed, there is nothing that rings alarm bells from my point of view. You know, the parking's all there, the lines are staying the same, the bus stop's there. You know, there's facility for funerals, all of that. It's all it's kind of, as I say, tick tick tick. So there's nothing to worry about from that.
Thank you very much.
No worries.
Carry on. Councillor.
Okay. I've got a rhetorical question for you. What is the worst road in Colne in terms of potholes and surface? And I know the flippant side, you might want to go, well, all of them. The worst road in Colne, some people might not even know where it is. Junction Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's horrendous. Now, obviously, I get contacted by about potholes and road surfaces all of the time, and the stock answer is always, please report either to me or Love Clean Streets, because every time you make a report for a pothole or a default in the road, it escalates that road in terms of urgency and need of being resurfaced. So the worst road in Colne, according to the data, and according to if you try and drive on it, walk on it, even crossing that road, is really bad. It is horrendous. It is Junction Street, and I'm very happy to say that it is having a full resurface. It's costing £318,000 to do that road, which is a phenomenal amount of money. But it's great to get it done, and it's purely down to the reports that have been made. So it's really good that that's been done. I'm sure that a number of residents, Councillor Clamp will know that there's been some work done around Birtwistle today. Yesterday they started. Was it yesterday or Friday that they started? Friday. Yeah, so they've excavated that, and they're doing some quite big patches on there again. I know they did the far end sort of autumn time last year, and then they're doing the other end. I'm still fighting for a full resurface. It definitely needs it. I think it's probably the second worst road in Colne. It's definitely up there along with Windy Bank, probably on a par for that. But the good news is that we're getting these big patches done rather than just little, infills. It's proper patching. So I think that's a win for the people of Colne. I really do. And then I've got a request, probably for Gina. I'm chairing the Colne Community Safety Working Group, and you've been submitting to us a CCTV report.
Yes.
And it's great to have, and I'm very grateful and thankful. I'm also grateful for this council for providing the CCTV and obviously the upgrades that have gone on with that. But it would be really useful if somebody could present that data and explain what it is. Are there any anomalies? Because it's great reading through it, but unless we get a sort of bank of it, a few months worth, we don't actually know. There's no sort of relative point, so there's no benchmarking in it. So I can't say is 6 incidents picked up by the camera outside Tesco's a normal amount of incidents. If you see what I mean.
Mhm.
So it'd be really useful if we had some sort of presentation of that information. And it can be very, very brief, and it's obviously it's in this room, so you don't have to go far. And that's everything from me. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Sir Dorothy.
I don't often get the chance to walk about in Colne, but today I did. I was at a meeting at Birtwistle Trust, and I wandered back this way, and I picked up quite a few issues. One of them that particularly annoyed me was the 3 taxis parked outside Tesco's because the taxi rank was full. Now they're taking up 3 shoppers' parking spaces. Now I've reported it, but I thought we need to really nip this in the bud before they're halfway down to the market. the other thing that I wasn't right sure about, as I came round onto Craddock Road, there was 3 bins just round the corner. I think a brown and 2 grey, full to the top with the lids open, and they stank. They absolutely stank. Now I then went to the Citadel, and I was telling this chap this, and he said, "Oh, he lives on Bent Street," and he said, "They're from the mosque." I said, "What mosque?" "The mosque in that building." Now, I've never heard of this before. Has anybody else? The tower buildings. Yeah, no, right. I'll look into that. And the same chap, when I was telling him that I was going on a cruise, said, "They're all right, these cruises, but they're just full of old widows," which I didn't really appreciate, but anyway. But yeah, I have picked up quite a lot today, and a lot to sort out for myself. That's it. Yeah.
Neil?
Thank you very much. Just a question for you. What time was it when the taxis were outside Tesco's? Just roughly.
Probably about 11 o'clock.
This morning. Right.
Maybe a bit later than that.
So-
No, it would be about 11.
Okay, thank you. So the problem we have there with taxis, because the taxi rank's full, although that car is a taxi, it's a legalised vehicle, tax and insurance and that sort of thing. So in reality, they can park there, but they can only park there for the allotted time available, which I think is 40 minutes. I can't
Right.
100%
Well, I
sure.
don't know how long
But
they were
you
there.
can't really move them on because they actually might be shopping. I know they're not, but that can be their excuse.
Yeah.
And they have a 40-minute period where they can park really anyway, really, because of a legalised
yeah.
vehicle. But you know, I know what you mean. But if
But
you
I've never seen that before. I've
No.
never seen that extended like that
no,
before.
but I'm
you
sure
know.
if you, well, I do. I tell them all the time, like, you know, can you move on? And they normally do. They'll find somewhere else to park until
Yeah,
the
yeah,
queue's out.
yeah.
But thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Andy, if you can be quick, because we need to get on to the Borough Council
It will
report.
be quick.
Well, yeah.
It is very quick. It's relation as well to the taxis. The amount of times I've seen them not just parked in the lay-by outside Tesco, they're on the opposite side, parked in the bus stop, and they are parked in the bus stop. They're also parking into the Dockery Street on the ends, and sometimes you'll see not just one but 2, and they'll sit there having a cigarette in the car, watching videos, and it's double yellow lines as well. And the amount of times I've gone round and said, "Excuse me, you know, you parked on double yellows, you shouldn't be parked there." But it seems to be, they just seem to, we'll have a half an hour break here, but it's double yellows. They're not allowed to, but
No.
they do. Some do.
Okay, thanks.
That's all I've got.
I will get on to the Borough.
Right, quick whistle through the, if you look at the minutes from last time, the planning applications, there was an awful lot last time. We gave lots of views on these. So number 1 and 2, the church rooms, that's been called in, that one. Because obviously there's lots of impact there on heritage and the grade 1 listed building, etc. So we're going to have a good look at that one. Number 3 is outstanding. Number 4 is outstanding. Not seen that yet. Number 5 has been approved. Obviously just some aerials. Number 6, the maths was checked, so that was approved. Number 7, I think we all dislike this one, so that has been refused. That's probably heading towards enforcement as well. That one, it's dragging on that one. 8 is outstanding. 9 is outstanding. 10 has been approved. 11 is outstanding. 12 is outstanding. 13 is just noted because it's an appeal. And 14, there was a big debate about the colour of the pole. Should it be silvery or should it be green? But it's been approved. And they're going silvery as well. I don't know. Cone area. Unfortunately, Mary couldn't attend, but never mind. In terms of planning, most of it was at Trawden and Laneshire Bridge. What we had then was the EG totem, you know, on the garages, that big one. So obviously it's retrospective, and there was nothing we could do to object against that one, but we all disliked it intensely. Sorry, do you have a question? All right. In terms of funding allocations, we allocated some funds to the extra footpath work around Lake Burwain into phase 2 on that one. They're doing really well on the phase 1 so far, and also some fencing at Alkincoats Woodland as well. The Friends group came along there and wanted some fencing to put around there to protect things and the like. So we allocated some to that, and we also did some for Trawden Show as well to help them with a ticketing system. We wanted to progress the Keithley Road conservation area. We wanted to make sure Neil Watson did a bit of rewriting on it in terms of what to do with the Birtwistle housing and also the Carry Lane and Carry Bridge and the Park Primary area. Little update on the Wheel Park. There's one being built on the old car park bit near Ivory Way. So we saw a latest drawing on that one, and they're progressing now towards planning and starting to do some fundraising ideas on that. So that's progressing well. The Market Hall update. So obviously we've all seen that lots of cladding stuff's going on, the roofing's being done, etc. They're doing work on the first floor, and they have had permission to convert that from residential to employment. Remember this thing about it couldn't be flats because of noise and stuff like that. So they've had permission from the MHCLG to actually make that an employment area. And they're now going to put out a tender for an operator for the market as well. There was a big lavish tender document put out singing the praises of Cone Town Centre. So hopefully we've got some operators who are willing to go for it. Big discussion on pigeons, pesky pigeons, an ongoing problem for many years, decades even. Dorothy remembers them as a girl. And I think it's trying to come up with some sort of action plan to try and sort out the pigeons, whether that's contraceptive type things, whether that's hawks, whether that's culling in some way. So some sort of solution that works. We also had a bit of a chat about the cemetery chapel and the fact the roof's a bit knackered. Sorry, I shouldn't say that, but the roof's in a heck of a state. And also we keep pushing on whether the gates are going to be properly electrified and get working. There is a manual override as well, just in case it was you get trapped in there at night time. The only other meeting we had was a full council meeting just the other night on local government reorganisation. This was basically part of the whole Lancashire plan, writing back to the government, the minister there, to say we support some sort of setup across Lancashire, but it's a case of, do you do one big thing, do you do a smaller thing, smaller thing, smaller things? And we as Pendle tend to prefer the smaller end and keep it very East Lancashire. So after a reasonably quickish debate, we just agreed that was going to be the way forward. So,
Sarah.
So just sort of seguing on from that, really, in previous meetings, I have mentioned things that I'm worried about that might be lost to us in Cone. And it's quite clear that in 2028, Pendle Council won't exist. So the starting gun is really, really clear that it's been fired, and we have to really consider what's important to us. And I would highlight to you our mayoral regalia, which is cones, including the massive silver mace, the car parks, which are free but wouldn't be under a new authority. We can almost say that with certainty. The cemetery, we've discussed the cemetery already, and it's been on the Cone area agenda. Apparently it makes a small profit, but of course, if they're not repairing the cemetery structures, is that truly a profit? And I would contend it's not. The Mooney, which I think is so important to the culture of our town. So I just really think that we should grasp this nettle and not
I think
leave
everyone's been talking about that and thinking about our crown jewels.
That's it. It's so important to all of us, and we don't want to run out of time. You know, legal departments move terribly slowly. Gina knows this. I mean, I need hardly mention the allotments. We need to be on this, and we need to be on this really soon. I think we need perhaps a separate meeting or a working group or something, because there isn't the space in these meetings. We need to take this very seriously. So that's me finished speaking about that. Leave it to you. I'm going to talk about the bollards. So just before the meeting, we were just chatting. Hopefully you've seen that some of the bollards at the top of town have all been painted black and gold, and lots of different organisations have paid for all of this. It's Cone Bid, it's Cone Area Committee, it's Pearl, it's Pendle Borough Council. So hopefully they'll all be done all the way to the Marsden Building Society. And then in the new municipal year, we're going to get a quote for everything lower than the Marsden Building Society down to Primmett. And then in the last couple of years, then we will have done all the street signs, all the bins, and all the bollards. So Cone will be looking as spruce as can be.
Thank you.
What about the car parks? Oh yes, the car parks. Which ones? The Red Lion. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Can we move on to finances then, please? We've got a schedule of payments, which is 8A. Is there any questions on this paper? Yes.
I just had one question. I think we talked about the boilers, obviously, but £6,300.
Yes.
Is that just
Per
for
month.
January?
That
Yeah.
is just for January.
Oh my word.
I know.
Yes. That's the cost of half a boiler already there.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Obviously, I'm pleased to see the grant being paid out to Hillside Heroes. No other questions on 8A, so I'm happy with that.
Shall we, or do you want to do them both together to propose and
I mean-
second the?
8B, all I've really got on that one is we're nearing the end of the year, so we're at 94% spent in terms of costs. I'm pleased to see the income being quite strong, especially from events, so that's all good and positive. Two lowish percentages underspends on the allotments and playgrounds. So is there more stuff to just squeeze in before March, or we're just going to roll that work into the later spring?
There will be bits of work. We've had a report of some graffiti again at King George's, which had to be
Okay.
done this week. There's always something after the weekend, to be honest. So
True. Okay.
yeah, it's likely that it will be spent up by the end of
Okay.
the year.
That's fine.
Disappointing.
All right, but otherwise, yeah, happy with 8A and B, and I'll move them both. Right?
Right, okay.
What I will say is it was discussed at the last finance meeting. I am going to send an email to Pendle Borough Council about the timing of their sending the precept to us. Given that last year it was around the 10th of May, basically meaning that we have to fund 6 weeks from our reserves. So we're looking at cash flow issues at the moment, and it's looking like we may have to take some money out of the 30-day notice account that we have, just to tide us over till we get that first payment. I mean, obviously they did say that they would pay us up front at the beginning of every quarter, which would mean 1st of April, which would probably mean we wouldn't need to do that. But yeah, so I am just going to send an email just to ask, you know, if they can send it earlier, like they said they would do, and see if we can get anywhere with that.
Just a question: does it always arrive sort of halfway through the quarter then, or is it the first quarter a bit slow?
It's always been. But I think we've only had it quarterly for the last 2 years. I think before then we used to get the full payment for the year around the second week in May.
Okay.
But now obviously we're getting quarterly payments. But then we're still not getting. We were supposed to be getting it at the beginning of every quarter, but we're still not getting it till that week in May.
Okay.
David, you wanted to say something? Councillor Clegg?
Yes, Chairman. As we all know, and Gina's more or less said it all in a nutshell, we used to get the payment annually, middle of May. Pendle found themselves in a position where they couldn't pay all the Downham Parish Councils up front in May because they collected in throughout the year. So that is understandable that they don't get it in all at once. Equally, they did make the stipulation that if everyone agreed to go on it, they would pay us each of the quarters up front at the beginning of the quarter, not halfway through it. And what is a bit of a punishment to us is if we're in a fortunate enough position to have a bit of reserves, which we have, and we have it locked down in an account where you have to, in a notice account or something like that, we don't want to be losing our interest to use the money because it's to their advantage that we've gone on to the quarterly payments instead of all up front. So we've actually done them a favour in agreeing to do that. And I think the least they could do is to pay it at the beginning of each quarter up front, like they promised to do. And we'd be happy with that, wouldn't we?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
we actually, at the meeting, we actually asked Gina to write to Pendle and make the point.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, paper 8A and 8B, we've had a proposal and seconded proposed by David, seconded by Patricia. All those in favour? Thank you. Item 9 is the Colne Town Council Corporate Risk Register. You'll have had this paper to look at. Any questions or clarifications or issues within this document? Yes, David.
Fine piece of work. Fine piece of work. No, I think it's one of those ones. If you look at that intro summary there, you think to yourself, oh my word, that first column is so scary and so red. How could you possibly get out of bed each morning? But obviously the controls we have in place, which are present in the middle column, do so we've mitigated it very well indeed. So, you know, it's all credit to the environment we've got there, which is a good and strong one. The only two I wanted to talk about were the couple where there's a big drop in the numbers, both from the middle column to the end column. And that's number 6, which is lack of resources. And I just wondered, the way it's written, it starts off by saying it covers staff, office accommodation, equipment, etc., which are things as resources. But then it sort of heads towards money as resources. It talks about, you know, managing budget and earmark reserves, etc. So given that this is it's not a financial risk register, it's more a corporate risk one, I think resources should stick to things.
Okay.
You know, and there you're talking about, you know, the building, the people, you know, that sort of thing. And you touched on it a bit by talking about monitoring of workloads and things like that. But I think if you take out the money things, if you're happy with that, then you focus on that, in which case I think we've got a lot of the things already in place. You could probably even have a lower score for that first step. So that was that one.
Sorry, I was saying, what's the other one?
The other one was, again, linked to resources, I suppose, human resources, number 12.
Yeah.
So again, I think this is a good one. I think in a way we could probably take that middle score down a little bit more, because again, we've got in place all the things we do with our staff. We have staff appraisals, we do training, we do all of those things, which mean that, you know, we can take a bit more credit at that middle stage than we have done. Yes, okay, it echoes the point before about monitoring of workloads, making sure, you know, everything's spread a bit, you know, and if we have to employ more people or outsource something, then that's a decision we can take in the future. But otherwise, no, absolutely fine, and I'll move this if you like.
Okay, can I have a seconder? Howard, I'll take Howard Thomas. All those in favour? Thank you. Do you accept what David was saying about you could lower those? Yeah, okay. Item 10 is Colne Town Council Reserves and Treasury Management Policy. Again, any questions?
Let's had one on this one. Obviously, we talk about, I can see the changes that are made, and thank you for highlighting them. I think we've obviously got a target where we want to get a certain number of months of general reserve, certain level of earmark reserves. And we know, for example, in section 5, that we need to get around about 600 of general reserves. We've got about 300-ish, possibly going to be a bit lower than that by the year end. And similarly in 6.3, where we've only got 18% of our earmark reserve target. So I suppose the only thing it didn't really give me any idea on was how many years do you want? Have you got a plan to sort of say within 3 years, say, that's what we'll do? Because we're not doing it in 1 year, obviously, because we've set next year's budget anyway. So are we aiming for that within, say, 3 years?
Yes, I would think that's probably achievable if we keep the contingency element in the budget, then I think that's probably worth it. What I did do was I reduced the amount of earmark reserves that I think we should have, but increase the amount of general reserve.
Okay.
Because I think with, I don't know, obviously the future's very uncertain. If we're going to take on a lot of extra services, etc., then we need to have enough in general reserves to be able to
Yeah.
to put towards that, rather than it being stuck in earmarks for something else.
I think that's a good move because earmark reserves are obviously targeted to specific things, aren't they? You know, they've got a badge. Yes, we can move them around a bit as things come and go, but yeah, I think keeping that sort of overall general fund, I think, is a good flexible way to work it. So yeah, I've got no other changes or comments, so I'll move it if you like.
Right, anybody second those? Well, thank you, Dorothy. All those in favour? Thank you. Thank you. We move on to item 11. That's Colne Town Council's additional how hours policy.
I will just say that these next two policies, so there's additional hours and stock policy, they were actually recommended by the internal auditor. So obviously wanted to try and get these in place by the year end, so that we can say that we have listened and have attempted to put something together. Whether we review it in the near future, then we can do, but just having it in place in the first place. Really.
You want to take them separately?
Can do. Yeah. Just got the additional hours. I know we had a sort of policy before, didn't we? We said about people working out of hours, and we had a little table which had the things. So putting in a policy, fine. Whether you really want to do it every single year, that's up to you, I suppose. But it might be, if it's not going to change very much, if at all. Only a couple of small typos, really. Section 5, the font size seems a little bit smaller. And
sorry, what was that?
Section 5, bottom of page 3.
Font size.
Good old font size there. And going over to the top of page 4. So just the font size looks a little bit tiny there. In number 6, procedures, the first line there on office staff, individuals, ''s.
Yeah.
And next page, page 5, halfway down on the left in the toil section, third paragraph, employees requests. There should probably be ''s. Requests from employees. Other than that, all makes perfect sense, and I'll move that one.
Yeah. Okay, all those in favour? Item 12 is the Colne Town Council stock policy. Any questions? Yes, sir.
It's not really
Alice.
to do with the policy as such, but I was reading through our stock and I just noticed that we got slush syrup. And obviously that's been in the news a lot with the glycerin.
Under 7s, isn't it?
Yeah,
Shouldn't
and
have.
I just wondered whether ours had that, and if so, should we be keeping it or providing it at our fun days?
I don't know.
Have you not
I'll
seen it?
investigate.
Have you not seen it?
I've seen it all across the news. I'll have a look.
Yeah, and if we can contact any of our suppliers that do these drinks, perhaps we need to evaluate using them as well.
Yes, Dorothy.
I did mention this to Nathan last week, very briefly. You're all right, you weren't listening. But we do need to take this seriously.
Because they were hospitalised, weren't they, these children, and they were quite seriously ill.
Yeah, very, very poorly. Yeah. So we don't want to be landed with something like that.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Is it a big seller, Nathan?
Slush?
Not as much as beer, obviously, but
No, not really.
right.
I mean, the last time I actually sold it was over a year ago.
Let's get rid of it then.
We've not got that much in stock.
No.
Yes.
In that case, I could make a personal plea are one of my favourite things in the world. If we're getting rid of the glycerol-laden things for children, could we, for the blues, I'll definitely be first in the queue, have cider slush. It's a taste sensation.
I'll second that, actually. It's really good, actually.
It's so good. So good.
Only if it's warm weather.
I will have it year round.
Just a couple from me, nothing too fundamental. On the definitions, stock take is all one word. Having done a number in my life, it's all one word, so that goes a few places in the document. When we are stock take defining, I suppose you could say it's a record of the volume of stock. Now, I think we probably should use quantity or volume, because you're not going to say we've got 38 gallons of beer, are you? You've got 2 barrels or something like that. So therefore it's quantity or volume, or we got 50 cans. We haven't got 25 litres or something. Exactly. So, but base it on quantity is probably more relevant for us all. Section 4, font size. And the only other one was when you're looking at all the yellowy stuff. Stock take again. All the yellowy stuff about accounting procedures and write-offs and things. I think it's absolutely right to do that. I think all I would say is just be mindful of picking percentages and numbers. If you say it's £25 or it's X% or whatever, just be flexible in that, because you never know. There might be some things like slush, for example, which just spills all over the place, and it could be multiple percentages and whatever. So just keep a monitor on that with experience to say whether you should do that or not. And the only other one was in 9, where you do have the investigation of why things have disappeared. Probably that 4th bullet, you could break it down. So unrecorded breakages and spoilage could go together, but I think wrong orders is a different thing entirely, and complimentary drinks is like a sort of freebie giveaways type thing. So I think they can just be separate analysis. So if you're doing your digging, they probably go as separate points. Other than that, it's a worthy policy to have.
Okay.
What's the value, by the way?
At the
Our
moment,
balance sheet.
it's at the moment it's about 1,400, but I think what we actually have at the moment is about 900 and something, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And when we stock up for the blues, it's many thousands, I suppose.
Yes,
So-
yes, it gets a lot bigger.
Okay.
It's dry to suck
Nice is cheap though. So yes, I'll move that policy.
as well. Right. Anybody second that policy? Howard, yeah. All those in favour? Thank you. Item 13 is speed management. It's the SPIDs.
Yes, so
New location.
we have 3, obviously going through the analysis and looking at the data, we have 3 completely different areas here. Obviously you've got Castle Road, where your volume of cars is considerably less than the other 2 locations. The Langroyd Road, you would the actual data that was there suggests that we don't have a problem at Langroyd Road, because the majority of people are within the speed limit. But obviously there are those occasions where there are people that aren't, and they are way over in this case the actual speed limit. So it was very interesting going through the reports just to see the different what I have done in the reports is so the first volume report that's there is basically just a standard week of volume. So basically that's what most of the weeks are like. Then obviously, so we had the Christmas break in between. So I thought it would be interesting to see what the volume was like during the holidays, and obviously the half term as well. And all the other graphs that have been presented are when there's someone that's over the speed limit. So you have considerably less graphs for Langroyd Road, because a lot of the weeks there wasn't anyone actually over the limit. So, well, it's the average speed. So the average speed wasn't over 30. So you didn't get the charts for those. But obviously I thought the histogram was quite revealing, because it says the volume of cars that were going certain speeds, which is quite helpful. But yeah, I'll Sarah wants to think.
Yes.
So when we started out with this, and it was years ago now, the police promised us that they would do operations based on the times of when people are speeding. And we've obviously done, we've now got quite a bit of data, not just from this one, but from the one before. So I actually would make a plea that we, as the town council, write to the police, our Sergeant Chris Emmett, and say, here is the data, you see the data, you did promise us that there would be out of hours operations to try to catch these outliers, because Castle Road, 75 miles an hour, 75 miles an hour. And you could say, oh, it's early in the morning. No, just no.
But it wasn't just the one that was 75, there were a few at 75.
Well, Shaw Road was 70 the other month, wasn't it? So it's phenomenal. I think that we do need an undertaking that they're going to try that Thursday nights, Friday nights, some early in the morning, whatever, based on our data that we have collected for them. And the second thing is I've written to you about this, Gina, which is a plea from Trawden to mount in the next SPID locations for something to go in Trawden.
So what, do we have to we look to be discussing the new locations? Are we not?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Councillor Thomas.
I would say, for fairness, there's been nothing in Fulridge, so perhaps we should have at least one there. I don't know where would be best, but they're all on Skipton Road, Skipton New Road. So just choose one of those for fairness. I don't know whether people would agree with me with that.
I think they're speeding in Fulridge though.
Well, they've obviously had the plates there, and we decided on those areas, so there must have been a problem. But yeah,
well, that's further on than Fulridge, isn't it? Near Kelbrook, I think. Yes, Howard.
The last one here was Skipton Road, Trawden.
Yes, but there are other locations.
Yeah, the implication was that Trawden hadn't had anything, but because I looked at it, I thought, oh, Skipton Road's bad. Then I realised it was Skipton Road, Trawden. But what we do have to do is make sure that the data that has been collected is sent on to. I mean, I wouldn't bother with the local bobbies. I think it ought to go to the whoever is now in charge of traffic at Hutton, and say, look, this is this. We can back this up with facts and figures and times and dates and all the rest of it. Please send somebody over here to catch these idiots that are driving up Castle Road at 70 odd miles an hour in the middle of the night. And not only that, some of the speed on Langroyd is quite ridiculous at 50. I'm guessing it's about 55. Looking
60, 65, I think.
Looking at the peaks on that graph, and I was absolutely gobsmacked about the Castle Road one. In fact, there's that much information there that it's a bit difficult to take it all in at one side about 6 windows open on the computer trying to juggle between the ones. I think the suggestion of Foleridge is a good idea. As an ex-Foleridge resident, they do speed through, and the bend at the causeway there is particularly bad and has been the scene of some pretty horrific accidents over the years. And I know there are always complaints about parking outside, too near the causeway on yellow lines that don't appear to be enforced. I think possibly in recent times they've not had the same problem because there have been that many flipping traffic lights between Kirkbride or Kirkbridge and the 4 Elephants that I think it's probably impossible, or has been, to get over the speed that the 30 miles an hour. Also, I'm not sure that some of the Langroyd ones are a bit understated because, again, there have been lots of roadworks on there that have possibly slowed it up. So I don't think we should lose sight of that. And Red Lane, now it's open again. Certainly, just casual observations there, the speed has got back up again, particularly from the Barrowford, coming in towards Colne rather than going the other way. So I think one of the ones we should look at is putting them on Castle Road.
Red Lane.
Red Lane.
Red Lane. I've got Alice and then Dorothy.
I'm just thinking of another location that I'd perhaps like to put forward. We've already had one on Shore Street, so we have got quite a lot of data on Shore Street going one way. I would suggest we put one the other way and then make sure that there is actually some operations that go on there, because that is a racetrack. And from Lenches down Knots Lane, all the way round Shore Street, back again. So if the data's not going to be used, there's no point.
Dorothy?
I was just going to ask, does anybody or can anybody attend the traffic liaison meetings with, I think they're with Lancashire County Council, are they? I know Scott Worley goes, I do know that. I don't think I've ever seen a councillor's name on the list.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, it's an officers' meeting. Sorry, Chair. is that
Sorry.
okay? As far as I'm aware, it is an officers' meeting. And in terms
Right,
of reports,
just
I know that
officers, yeah.
Councillor Thomas said earlier about reporting data to Hutton, whoever's in charge of traffic there. It will be done through the Lancashire Road Safety Partnership, where you would have to
Yeah,
submit that
yeah.
data.
I mean, you would
That
think
is fed through to
that it would be useful for a county councillor or a borough councillor to be there. But I know they've never been. I just wondered if it was possible to attend. But like you say, it's an officer led, isn't it?
So, yeah, well, we've had those suggestions. Do we have to make a decision now?
Well, I don't know. We could do, really, because otherwise it'll just be delayed.
Yeah.
For
So
another-
what have we got? What's the options?
Well,
Foleridge,
Red Lane,
Red Lane
and then Trawden was mentioned.
and
Short
Shore
Street
Street
has been
the other
mentioned.
way. Yeah, that's 4.
I'll,
Yeah,
I'll,
we've only
I'll
got
put in
3.
one plea for Lancashire. I was at the parish council meeting the other night, and they're still wondering what on earth they can do to slow people down. They had that big crash again on the corner, and people just ignore it coming across from Cowling and whatever. And you know, they're wondering if they could do something like the police did with Christchurch Primary School, where the police and the children were out there flagging people down. So they tried to do the same sort of thing with Lancashire Bridge Primary, but got no response from the police. So we've chased that. But it's a case of what else could they do? They were thinking about having, you know, little iron or cardboard policemen by the road. People were suggesting going out with their hair dryers, just having a bit of fun, pointing it at people. You know, those kind of ideas. So they're sort of thinking about new ways to do it. But if we did another one on Keithley Road in a different location, I think there's a couple of different locations, aren't there? So
Yes, Darren.
Could we write to the traffic liaison committee
I
and
do send all
express?
these reports to LCC.
send it.
Sorry,
I do send all this data to LCC.
you do. Are they reading it?
I think so, yeah.
Can be understand.
Well, they did actually, there was a joint operation on Shore Street
Yeah, yeah.
after we submitted that data. So,
Okay.
How many have we got? 4 to place that 5.
we've got about 5
Big.
locations that have been mentioned. Obviously,
Yeah.
we've only got 3 devices.
Oh,
All right. Well, we've got enough for the next rotation. haven't we?
yeah. So we've got down where those.
Yes,
Yeah.
this time. I would suggest Red Lane. We'll do that one. In Cole.
Forward.
Lancashire Bridge suffer even more, I think.
Yeah, Nature suffers more on that.
Lancashire Bridge.
Yeah, Longstreet. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if those are the 3 yes,
Chairman, before you move on, I think someone's missing a trick somewhere here with this, because it's a well-known fact that everyone always says that the police always are mean and nasty and horrible and pick on the motorists more than anyone. And yet, potentially, they are throwing easy pickings away here by not acting on our information, because they're always saying we can't catch people speeding unless we know where to be at a certain time. We've got that information, we've given them the information, and they're not acting on it. And to me, it's easy pickings for them, and I can't understand for life in me why they aren't doing it.
Lack of resources,
It's a cash
possibly.
cow.
yeah, it is a cash cow. Yeah.
They are focusing their resources. As you say, if the exact time go to 3 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning at Castle Road, boom, guarantee
They
of
are virtually telling them where to be and at
What time? Yeah. Yes, Darren.
Remember, some months ago, I told you when I worked in a house on Burnley Road, and I think this is probably 15, 20 years ago, and this was going on from Lancashire Bridge right through. And eventually, they did listen, and they did put somebody out there, but only for one night. You know, and then they said they were too busy with other traffic problems and what have you, and you know, and obviously since then it's just really got out of hand.
Can someone propose those 3 sites?
I'll
then?
propose them.
And seconded Patricia. Yeah. All those in favour? Thank you. Right. Thank you. The next item 14 is Cong Town Council meeting schedule 25-26. Yes, David.
Chairman, I've checked them all out. Nothing clashes with anything that it shouldn't do, other than Nathan might want to have a look at the Colne Gala one, because I don't think we want it on a Tuesday. It's got the date right, but the day wrong. Other than that, I think it's fine.
Yes, Alice.
I don't think we'll need the Halloween in Cone one
No.
because the events committee decided that we were not going to be running that event in order to save a little bit of money for other things. And I don't know whether it's part of this sheet, but I can't see the Alkincoats working group. And given the amount of problems we do have at Alkincoats, I think that's an important meeting to have.
Well, we have it here, don't we?
Yeah, yeah.
So
The reason the Alkin Courts working group or allotments isn't on there. We're waiting for Leah to return, and then we'll bring it back with an update. Yeah.
Sorry,
Yes.
allotments are on there.
Allotments are on.
Yeah,
The first
the
one's
only one that's
after
not
Leah
is
returns.
the one that's the beginning one. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, because of all the issues we're having at Alkin Courts.
Yeah. So are we going to have to wait till June then before we get a meeting?
There is a Alkin Courts working group meeting scheduled for the 2nd of April, 1 o'clock. The agenda will be sent out tomorrow.
Oh, thank you.
Right. Okay. Right. Are we all happy then?
Sorry, I was I was going to mention the one thing that isn't on here is a date for the annual parish meeting. We did actually say that this year we would separate it and not have it on the same night as the full council meeting, so we can make more of an event of it, really. So we do need to possibly. We were thinking maybe just the week before. So it's obviously you've got FES, but then there's a week, and then there's the full council. So it would be the week in between FES and full council. Is it? It has to be done before the full council.
You could move the events committee to the 27th.
Right.
Do it that way.
What are you proposing?
Move the events committee from that week
Right.
to the
Right. Okay.
27th.
Yeah.
And have the annual parish meeting on the 30th.
Right. So we need a proposer and a seconder to accept that those should be our the dates. Okay. Thank you, Patricia. All those in favour? Come on. Item 15 is treasure our town. Is there any issues with the dates and the times put on
Yes.
the list?
Where's my little thing? I looked at this and I'm sure that you'd agree that Keighley Road last time was, I mean, I want to sound positive about this. I was going to say underperforming, but actually it was performing Keighley Road because there was nothing to collect. So I would recommend instead that Wednesday, the 2nd of July, we consider Shaw Street and Bridge Street instead. And I feel that we'll achieve more there. And then also the one for Gibb Hill, which was the fatal one where Gina came out with me and we never reached Gibb Hill. So bad was it. We never reached Gibb Hill. It was, as Edward would say, an epic fail. So the meeting point to be confirmed there, I think that should be the top end of Briarcliff Avenue. And I give my apologies for the 7th of May, it's my birthday. So I have other things to do. I know. So uncommitted am I.
Okay, so we need to decide that those are the dates and those are the places we're going to. All those in, can I have a proposer and seconder first? Proposer Alice, seconder is someone?
Howard.
Neil, all those in favour? Thank you. I don't know what it is, Neil, about your name. I can't get it out. I know. Right, the next item is Colne Junior Council. We've got some lovely photographs of that here. It's only for information, but can we have an update on the proceeding and how it's going, the Junior Council?
Well, I think Gina agrees with me with this. Last year, the junior councillors got to pick what it was they did. And this year, they've been given this sort of television-style challenge. And obviously, they're children. So this last meeting, they brainstormed. I mean, you would, wouldn't you? You'd be there saying, let's have kites, let's have elephants, let's have towers, so the more things they came up with, many of them were great ideas. I'm being trivial giving examples they didn't give, but the more things they came up with, the more the teachers whose idea it was in the first place began to say, well, we're teachers, we're too busy teaching to do all of this. And at the end, I'm afraid they sort of rained on the children's parade. And Gina's trying to make it happen by saying you could piggyback off bits of the gala. I'm trying to sort of help out as well. I feel really sorry for the children. They came up with loads and loads of good ideas and they can't all be realised. And in a sense, they now need to refine what is practical. I suppose you could say they're learning a life lesson about how things really work. But you can't fault their enthusiasm.
Oh no, not at all.
Well,
But
what
yes,
comes out of that, yes.
there was Nelson College are wanting to get involved to help with their because they do a lot of work with Open Door as well. So they're going to assist the junior council in trying to organise this event. It's going to help with social media and things like that. Yeah, so that was it really. They're going to help produce a video for the children to raise awareness of what Colne Open Door do.
Right, move on then. Item 17, the Great British Rhythm and Blues Festival update. And we've got ticket sales, etc. here.
So there's no real update compared to last month, because we're the new financial year to get the rest of everything else arranged and paid for and booked, that sort of thing. Ticket sales are coming along nicely. So we've sold 128 tickets and 32 camping pictures, which compared to where we were this time last year is around about the same. So I think that's quite a good thing considering we haven't got a full lineup just yet. Marketing the event, Scott Dawson are promoting acts that have been contracted and signed the contracts. And they're announcing an artist every couple of days. And we're almost out of a full completed main stage lineup, which we're expecting once we've got that we'll see an increase in ticket sales. There's various other bits happening for the festival this year, so we've got quite a few press releases to go out in the coming weeks, some interviews with artists, various different bits, and myself, Gina and Colne Blues Society will be at the UK Blues Awards for last year's festival next month as well.
Thank you. Are there anybody any questions for Nathan? Oh, right. Well, we'll move on to item 18, which is Lancashire Growth Plan consultation. To inform members of the consultation, which runs until Friday the 11th of April, and for councillors to consider if they would like to send in a collective response from the Town Council. So we've got a decision to make. So has anybody got any issues or anything? Howard? Have you put your microphone on?
And found that there's a mysterious piece of land for strategic sites for additional industry places, one of which is the extension to the Loamshire, the existing Loamshire industrial estate. And in extra ones that they can have is a mysterious one called Hare's House, Pendle. Now, the only Hare's House that I'm aware of is Hare's House Lane, which, for those that don't know, runs down towards Red Lane, I suppose, and from the railway bridge on Barrowford Road. And at the back of there are lots of nice fields and trees. And we had an application last month for stables and goodness knows what on a piece of land down there. And this has filled me with a bit of dread. I don't know where this idea has come from, because I then went down the rabbit hole of looking at Pendle's local plan map, where all this lot is still shown as either open space or green belt and what have you, because this has the danger of opening up a whole tract of land down towards the canal at the back of Barrowford Road there, opposite Grenfell Gardens, which would be an absolute disaster. So I think one comment we need to make is, where is this? What is it? And what are they talking about? Because unless there's a Hare's House somewhere else that we don't know about, it just says Pendle. I mean, the other one that they mentioned for Pendle is quite easy to work out, because it says West Craven Business Park, so that's pretty simple to work out. But this one has just appeared from somewhere, so I suspect it's someone sat in Preston looking at a piece of land. Certainly, if it's someone within Pendle, they want their knuckles rapping with a large
ruler.
Yes, well, probably something a bit harder than that to sort them out. So I certainly would object to this, and I think as a town council we ought to object to that part of it. I mean, the rest of it is all a bit airy-fairy, and it might happen, it might not happen, and a lot of it is pinning it. They're pinning their hopes on things like the Eden project in Morecambe and relaunching Blackpool yet again, which, having been there for an event on last Friday night, they've got a heck of a job on, because they've got very nice car parks that you, but the rest of it, apart from the Golden Mile, is far from golden. So I think we're lucky, but could be unlucky if this Hare's House is actually something that is seriously being thought about.
Thank you. Anybody, anything else? Got Sarah, and then
So I didn't dig around on the website. I just read what was put in front of me, which was this document. And I was thinking, oh, there are loads of fine words. And I really like silicon sand. I thought, oh, what marketing person came up with that, I'm pro it. I was quite relaxed. And then, as quite often is the case, it sort of got into the nitty gritty, and it held Blackburn up as a way forward, because it's got a strategic housing site of 1,000 homes or whatever, and it sort of linked that directly to people who were deprived, but in no way did it suggest how these deprived people would be buying these houses, because they're not social housing. There was talk of affordable, but we all know that that's just sort of 15-20% off. It's not actually affordable to people who need housing. So my antennae sort of prickled a bit. And then there were some glib sections all about let's knock down the old houses that are not, there are those sections, let's knock those down. Sounded a bit sort of 1960s. They're not ecologically sound and not good for energy efficiency, and have high quality energy efficient homes. And I am the chairman of the Climate Emergency Pendle Council working group, and the embodied carbon of old buildings was spent in 1880. So actually, you can upgrade those houses and they would be affordable, genuinely, as opposed to a made up thing that people say is affordable. Effort should be put to upgrade those houses. I think all of us know about the 1960s and 70s when they knocked down old buildings and said, oh, they're not fit for purpose, not fit for purpose, and they put up new buildings. And I went to a primary school, and in my primary school, I was next to an 18th, 19th century school that had grown. And that's still there. The infant school for my school is still there. It's one of the oldest buildings in St Anne's. And they built on an adjacent plot of land a sort of aspirational late 1960s, early 1970s school. And my classrooms had afro props in them because nobody really trusted the ceilings. That entire school, which everybody was like, oh, look at this, it's all new. It's been flattened and they've had to build a new school. Next to it is still the 19th, 18th century building that everybody said wasn't fit for purpose. Still there now, looking great. I'm presuming they've got rid of the coke boilers that caused our caretaker to have emphysema, and they've probably got zoned fancy boilers now. It's all fine. So I felt the more I read this, the more I felt it was contrary to our neighbourhood plan. I didn't even know about the Hare's House thing. But I think what they haven't done is sort of linked a good thing, like a business growing or a strategic site, and then link that to, here are some people that are suffering, how are we going to solve it? They've not put those things together. It's almost like they're islands rather than a formula. So I'd certainly like to have a crack at writing something on behalf of the neighbourhood plan. And it's not one of our designated sites, this Hare's House, so it's reasonable to say. And just to say that, I don't know whether you noticed, perhaps I should have said we've got the neighbourhood plan still to come? I'll do it then.
Yeah.
I'll do it then. So yeah, I'd like to have a go when we've got time before the 11th of April and people can feed in.
Yeah. Yes. Howard?
Very interestingly, as well as knocking things down in the 60s and 70s, the then government spent money on general improvement areas and housing action areas. Otherwise, if they hadn't have done that, by now Notts Lane probably wouldn't exist, and a lot of the, in inverted commas, old South Valley, because the Notts Lane housing action area had lots of money spent on it, and is probably getting to the stage that more needs to be repurposed in bringing in insulation and bringing houses up that way. And the same with the whole area around West Street gained from this. And that is a much cheaper and efficient way of doing it than
Clearance.
building houses that aren't, I won't say they're not fit for purpose, but they're not solving the problem. And the other problem that's not being solved is the lack of social housing, because of a certain prime minister who decided it was a good thing to sell council houses off to sitting tenants, but then stopped the councils using that money to replace them, as I'm sure Councillor Clamp knows only too well, because he was involved in that sort of thing at the time, and it needs some joined up thinking. I don't think that the present government have any chance of any joined up thinking, but we live in hopes.
Did you want to speak?
I might be barking up the wrong tree here, but listening to Sarah talking about climate change and your house being, eco-friendly or whatever it is. My house was built in 1884. When we moved there in 1982, we had no central heating, and we had no double glazing, as a lot of people didn't, you know, and kids used to waking up in the morning, ice on the windows, inside, you know. And of course we got that sorted out. And I know on my street, there's quite often some scaffolding them, but you know, they're doing the roof, and I know people put the loft insulation in and new doors and windows, and not obviously, but they're possibly replacing them, not from single glaze, but replacing them again. So people do look after the houses. Obviously, they want to be warm and comfortable, and yeah, that's all I want to say, really. Yes.
And I think it's an odd one. I mean, it's a worthy document. There's lots of little islands of good ideas, I think. One of the things that the devolution paper got bogged down the other night was that there were whole sections about deprivation. And you thought, if I was a minister reading this, I'd think Lancashire was an absolute dump. It was just doom laden, and this one at least has some positivity in it, which is good. It talks about opportunities and things. It talks a lot about road and rail. And I know one of the things we talked about in the neighbourhood plan was the idea that, you know, if you can come up from London, get the train to Preston in 2 hours and a bit, and then suddenly you're faced with another hour and a half to get from Preston to Cone, which is absolutely rubbish. Well, on a good day with the following wind. Yeah. I have to drive to Preston and pick him up and bring him home again. But I think that idea of sort of east-west rail, I think, is a good thing to invest in. Feeds into the CellRAP thing and up to Skipton and all the benefits that should bring. I think on the motorway front, well, no, the only one on rail is being able to connect Cone to Manchester. I think will be that sort of thing which would transform our ability to be a commuter area. You know, you see lots of these surveys where it's all about affordability. If you work in Manchester, you can buy a big house in Burnley or whatever. You know, why not just go a little bit further to Cone and such like? So that would help our housing market generally. I think on the motorway front, it talks about the M65 and improving that as a growth corridor. Now, whether that just means you build lots of sheds along the M65 all the way from Blackburn to here, I'm not sure what they're aiming for there. But I know we've talked about the bypass and all that kind of thing, and the different forms of that. The idea of taking stuff up towards past Fulridge and up to Skipton, I think, is probably the way they're looking. But I think the way that works, what we don't want is to be able to drive past us. Because that's what Nelson suffers from. That's what Burnley suffered from. You just drive on the motorway and you see there's a town in the distance. You never call in, do you? So I think the only good thing about what Greavesy did many years ago to stop the motorway there was that you're forced to drive through Cone at a slowish pace and, I might go shopping there. Boundary Mill. The North Valley Trading Estate, I'll go there. So you're sort of forced to do that and go through the town as well. So I think road and rail are things we can emphasise. Page 10 is the one that starts off on that one. I think Sarah's stuff on the housing on page 32 is a good point to make in terms of what sorts of housing we can do and how we can retrofit what we've already got. I think another point is on page 29, where it talks about skills and education. Another thing we've talked about a lot is when people leave school at 16, some have qualifications, some don't. Where do you go next? You know, if you're into a sixth form, where's a sixth form? So you have to go to Nelson and Cone College, and then if you're heading already away from the area, you then go to UCLan or wherever, and you go further away. You don't bother coming back again.
Oxford and Cambridge if you go to Nelson and Cone College.
Unless you're brilliant.
Well, if you go to Nelson and Cone College, because I know children from Fishermore who've gone to Oxford and Cambridge.
But I think we have lots of secondary schools that don't have sixth forms.
We do, yeah.
And I think that's the thing that's missing. You know, when we were growing up, most schools did have a sixth form of some kind. So I think that sort of thing about education and skills is a worthy point to make. And did I have anything else? Oh yes, near the back. Oh no, that was rail again. There you go. Page 38, more on rail.
38.
But that was all.
Page 38. So what we've looked for the views that this council's got. People who wanted to speak have spoken. So what sort of, are we sending a response from the town council?
I think Councillor.
Oh, and Andy, sorry.
Thank you. You passed me by, but I'm not going to worry. No, the only
Getting you back for the grumpiness.
my
Well,
only concern at the moment is this has been produced by the newly instated CCA, which at the moment, which is Blackburn, Blackpool, and one from county. We've already spoke earlier on about the devolution of Pendle Boroughs, Pendle Borough Council, which is looking how that's going to change. So we're going to end up where this plan, which is a 10-year plan, those that have already wrote it out, that itinerary is going to be changed because we're no longer going to be 15 separate borough councils. We may be 5, we may be 3, we may be 2 unitaries. So my concern at the moment is that's a great plan, but if we're losing county council as well, that this combined authority may change and it may change their plan. So I'm looking at a couple of years down the line. I'm just a bit wary of how that may change.
But do you think we should have? We've got the opportunity to comment on it, haven't we? And say where we think they're wrong or they haven't gone far enough in other areas. Yes, Patricia.
I'm in agreement with Councillor Bell. This is, as Councillor Coburn-Price has said, that Pendle is dying in 2028. Lancashire probably going a bit earlier. We were just a parish council, as they say up there. We've got to fight for everything that we have. We've got some absolutely fabulous buildings. I agree with you, Sarah. They're absolutely fabulous buildings, and we've got some absolutely terrible buildings as well. Some of the more modern buildings, I want to throw a match at them, being honest. But we do need to protect everything that we've got. And as Howard has said, this Hare's house, what they're going to build? What they're going to build on it? No, sorry, they're not going to build on it. We shouldn't let them. We have got to look after our own with an iron fist. It's a smashing document, nicely worded, very colourful, but we're more colourful. We need to look after ourselves.
So what we're going to do, I'm going to try and get something that's from the council. Rather, are we happy with that? Yeah. Well, you've got a job, Sarah, there. Yeah. Yes, Andrew?
Yeah, just one last thing. Personally, I believe that the CCA at the moment, which is Blackburn, Blackpool, I think there's going to be bias towards that side of the county because I'm seeing in the moment we say about this, the internet hub or the IT hub that they built at Salisbury. To me, they call it East Lancashire. To me, that is not East Lancashire, and I think there's going to be some bias where we're going to be left behind again. Even though they say we've got some great ideas, but say Hare and House, it's like, well, what are you looking at doing? But
this is why I think it's important that we do comment when we have the opportunity to do so.
I think they really need to look at it, but they've also got to look at themselves and say, well, are they going to be around in 5 years for a 10-year plan? Because it's that we know it's going to change because that combined authority is going to disappear with the loss of county.
I think we also have to learn to shout louder.
Yeah, absolutely. If we don't keep it local, we're going to lose it. And if we lose that voice,
right. Well, will somebody propose that plan of action? Thank you, Patricia. Can someone second that? David, well, everybody, yeah. All those in favour? Thank you. So we'll. What's the date? So if you can get something by, so it's the 11th, isn't it? So what day is that? What's the 11th?
The deadline's the 11th, right?
Yeah. So if we can have it a few days before that, or yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, you do have these insane weeks where you're really busy and then you find some time. Right. The next item is called neighbourhood plan. Can you update us?
Yeah,
if
so
there's any-
actually, I want to make a confession, and I hope I haven't made a terrible mistake. So, the consultation for the Pendle local plan, we put in our response. I drafted it, you put your 2 penneth in as well, and I submitted it, and I was quite pleased with it. But because I didn't do it on the official form, you had 2 ways of doing it. You could email it or you could do it on the official form. I didn't answer the question, do you want to be represented at the oral hearings? I've written to Michael Wellock about it because I do feel that we need to be, whether I write now to the inspector and ask to be at the oral hearings. In particular, the owner of the Lenches has written 90 pages on why you should build on the Lenches, but they've been topped by the owners of the Upper Rough, who've written 235 pages, along with a barrister's opinion on why you should. The only place to build, apparently, isn't Hare's House, it's the Upper Rough. So they've done a full analysis of all the other places and said this is literally the only place you can put any houses. So I think it's they did the form, so they tick the box that they want to be at the oral hearings. They'll presumably send a barrister team. So I really do feel that I've asked Michael Wellock what to do next, but I really do feel that we need to be at the oral hearing of the Pendle Council local plan, albeit that that's temporary because they've been told that if this plan is passed, they have to start a new plan to agree with Angela Rayner's 333 house target in December 2017. So this plan is the world 2027, sorry. So this is a less than 2-year plan, or it's a 2-year plan only, albeit that it's meant to go to 2040, thus proving. But the thing is, once you start writing these things on plans, then they then tend to be carried over to the next plan. So I just really hope that I haven't let you down with these oral hearings, because we've got to be represented. Certainly if it's like the neighbourhood plan, if you remember, that examiner invited people that had written long. So it would be, I think, really harsh if he invited the owners of the Lenches and he invited the owners of the Upper Rough, for example, and didn't invite somebody that had also, or a body, because Lidget and Beyond also put in, bodies that had also given chapter and verse. It wasn't a short response. So fingers crossed to that. The next meeting for the neighbourhood plan is the 31st of March. And this is the one whereby we're looking at all of our policies under a microscope, and we're looking for 2 things. How do they sit with the new NPPF? I do not know the answer to this. This is why we employ Michael Wellock. How do they sit with the new NPPF? But we're also looking at our experience as borough councillors, where the plan has worked really well for what we want to make Colne more Coney, perhaps particularly on a design code basis, and where the plan has not worked well. And I can always give the same example. We've got a policy in our design code of dark skies in rural areas, and that has completely failed. And that is obviously down to the wording, because we have not managed to make that point. There are various other little tweaks that we've actually looked at other people's plans, where they've been slightly more harsh about, for example, rural development outside the settlement boundary or whatever. So we have some lessons to learn. So that's that meeting where we're going to go through all the policies and go, that's a winner, or perhaps even if it was a winner, but now it doesn't work with the new NPPF. We need to understand all of that, and that's what the meeting is for.
On the 31st.
31st.
Right. Yes.
I don't know whether it's of any interest to you, but today in the Telegraph, the Lancashire Telegraph, Paul Clough shared it on Facebook. Do you know Paul Clough? He's the manager at the Greenfield Nature Reserve, yeah. And he shared it, and I didn't really get a chance to read much of it apart from he said after reading it, the plan was very similar to Pendle's. So it was Hyndburn. It was Hyndburn. It was pertaining to Huncourt Village, where so the plan has been accepted by the government, and now I was brought up in Huncourt Village. They're going to build 1,100 houses there. You know, I'll read the rest of it when I get home, but you might want to look at that.
I will, and certainly if it's a strategic housing site, as was suggested that I've not seen at Hare's House, they wouldn't bother putting it in a plan like that if it was under 1,000 houses. It would be significant. It would not be 50.
Okay. So that's what the meeting on the 31st of March is important, and that's the next one for the. And if something jumps out and it's urgent that we need to do something, do we bring it back here if we have to change something or? Yeah, I'm just thinking about this 200 and odd pages on the upper roof, or
well,
how does it sit with the new MP? Yeah, because we all need to know about that.
Yeah, the Pendle local plan is their local plan. We have our neighbourhood plan, which is made, and on that basis, with our made plan, that's how I responded to their local plan.
Yeah.
So what the owners of the land have done is suggest that Pendle Council is wrong and that the neighbourhood plan is wrong. So, for example, with regard to the Upper Rough, they'd have a barrister's opinion that it does not qualify under paragraph 101 of the NPPF, and it's not that paragraph number anymore, is it? No. And is therefore an extensive tract of land. And they've invited the inspector to classify it as an extensive tract of land. So obviously it's clear that their argument is against Pendle Council and it's against Colne Town Council. And it's obviously for that one person to judge whether they're right. It's nothing more that I hope that we can attend the oral hearings, but we've set out our case.
Obviously, we have an examiner's opinion that says that they do qualify to be.
Yes, but Little Cloud say that examiner was almost certainly wrong.
Thank you, Neil. The next item is planning. So the first planning application is 25/0117/AGD. It's agricultural building, 200 metres north of the junction from Red Lane and Smithy Lane, Colne. Anybody got anything to say about this?
Say one thing about it, Chairman.
Converting a agricultural dwelling to
before we sort of debate it properly. I think we need to be very careful with this one because it is sat in the green belt and it is residential. And are we opening up a whole can of worms for all those fields down that hillside if we allow this residential one there?
Isn't it Class Q?
Isn't it what?
Well, it's prior approval, so I assumed it was Class Q. In which case, nothing can be done. The only questions you can ask of Class Q are, has it ever been used for agriculture? And if it has, good. Has 10 years elapsed since it was last used for agriculture?
But nevertheless, it is in Greenbelt and it's outside the settlement boundary, isn't it?
I think
Way outside.
you allowed that with Class Q, if it's Class Q. That's it's prior approval.
But I think there is a danger of opening all that countryside up to residential building on it if this is allowed. I don't know. I'm not saying there's an easy way of stopping it, but it is a fact that you'll open up all that. Now, I'm not sure how long it is since it's been used. Because it was used as log storage for a number of years, up to about 2 years ago, because the guy were getting loads and loads of logs in and cutting them up and selling logs on for firewood.
I think from a purpose perspective, Class Q trumps everything, but David has whispered in my ear, which is so, that it shouldn't so much change the building. And it hasn't, it's still the same frame and everything. All you can potentially say is there's a lot of residential style glazing, so it can't be read as an agricultural building so much. You look at all those patio doors, but it's still the same building, which is the main point of Class Q.
So what can we put in the response from Town Council? We obviously don't like it, don't want it.
Yeah, I think you can only talk about the glazing. You can't talk about the purpose. Okay, well, all right. Ash says you can say what you like. Go for it.
Other things you have to be wary of, particularly on highways grounds, because we do get winters here occasionally, and there's only two ways out. One way out is to go through the ford that usually in winter, for half of the winter, it's that deep in water with Berwain overflowing that you can't get through it. It's 3 or 4 foot deep, and the other way is up a 1 in 6. So there's two options. I think I know it's difficult, and I agree with what Sarah's saying, but I think we need to try and resist it.
County didn't object. Bless their cotton socks.
I mean, as borough councillors, we will get on.
I don't think it would come to an area, it was prior approval.
Yeah.
It wouldn't go there.
Okay.
I'm not putting words in your mouth.
Well, what's what we're saying then? It's
Sat in this room now, who are members of Fendel Borough Council, and I'm saying, well, someone call it in.
I didn't. I didn't go for it.
what about Andy? Your first calling in. Yes, it is. Yes, it's Norwood. Yeah. Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
If somebody does that and it's discussed at area committee level, I don't think we can do it anymore.
No.
We need to resist it.
So
It may be because of the fact, but that is unfortunately things we can do. Can't change it very much. It might be a highways issue. Say, it might be safe. If you don't want to say, I mean, in a sense, it doesn't set a precedent for rebuild development, because obviously they'll be all paragraphs arguing that. It'll just say class Q is fine. But hopefully, it's not paragraph. Unless it's not doing multiple replacement.
Yeah.
Which is a quite
Right.
So what comment are we actually making?
That so it's in the green belt. It's in the green belt. Highway,
And then obviously the
Access.
glazing. is
And
that-
it's just, yeah, it's just,
glazing, design, appearance. Yeah. Right. The next one is 25/0131/HHO. It's 10 Noina View Cone. It's extension to existing front balcony. No.
I lost. I'm embarrassing about it.
it's no comment.
No comment? No. Right. Oh, there's one the next for information only. It's 15 Lady Hartley Court, Colne. It's at the back of Hartley Homes, isn't it? That. Well, it's just a it's a TPO, isn't it? So, right. The next one is 26/0026/OUT. It's a land to the northeast, Shore Street, Colne. Erection of 6 bungalows. Yes, Alice.
Well, I read this and I was like delighted. Yeah, bungalows, and it's in a nice little plot. It's like what we were looking for when we were doing the neighbourhood plan. Just a few houses in areas that are not really doing much. And I think it's a really nice little development. So I would fully support it. And there's 2-bedroom bungalows. So even better. I might have one opposite the Millennium Green.
So
It is only outlined, so
So we're saying that we welcome the development.
yeah. The next one is 25/0118, so KHHO. It's 14 Snell Grove, Colne. Erection of boundary wall to the rear and side elevation. What's that big wall doing?
High, it's 2 meters.
Oh,
So this is described as to the side and rear, and obviously it's none of our business what happens to the side and rear ordinarily. But of course, this property, the way it's located, it's not to the side and rear. Well, it is to the side and rear of that property, but it's really very much along the highway, and it's a statement. So this is retrospective. It's obviously contrary to our design code within the neighbourhood plan. Actually, what was there before was too, but this really is. So I would say that it's quite clear that it's contrary to the Cone neighbourhood plan design code. I think it's 14. I don't know. I'd have to look that up, Gina. I'll have a look.
everybody happy with that? Yeah. Right. Is that all of them?
No, there's another 2.
Oh yes, I've got
That's
them.
good.
Yeah, 2 more. Yeah. One's erection of 1 dwelling with associated parking to the land to the southwest of 1 Car Road, Colne. That's in Barbary Bridge as well. Bratlap Barbary Bridges.
Well, I can't say some of it in an open meeting that's recorded. I told you earlier, can I? Other than, as far as I am aware, it currently is land that the owner purchased from Pendleborough Council for the use of a residential garden. So they've obviously purchased it at a residential garden price. They've kept the piece of land for somewhere between 3 to 5 years, and now they've decided to declare it surplus to their requirements and are wanting to build a house on it, which I think's a bit naughty, but we can only look at the planning side of it here. But it is designated as a residential garden, and it had to have the use designated as a residential garden because it was public open space. The council sold it, and as part of the sale, it was redesignated in planning terms as a residential garden. So they would need a change of use to change it to housing, and I don't think that is a suitable place to put a house. I don't think it's big enough.
I remember this, and I remember that being said.
I said it on the time
Yeah,
when we sold the land.
Was it not stipulated at the time that we couldn't build on it, or not? That was at the point.
As far as I was aware at the time, it was said that the land was sold up with the condition on it that it was only to be used for a residential garden. And I can't say.
Well, my memory fails me on this point, but I think that it's perfectly reasonable for the town council to put in its response that we would ask that Pendle Council look at the planning conditions that are attached to this piece of land to see whether this application is allowable. You know, otherwise it should be withdrawn, perhaps. I don't know. So thinking about the design, I'm disturbed. So all the way down Carr Road, there were very homogenous houses that were, I think, built as council houses that have hipped roofs. And I spent a long time looking at the plan, trying to make the back of it or the side of it face Carr Road, but that isn't the case. That isn't the case. So it's the little pointy bit, and it would really disrupt the rhythm of Carr Road. It would be very obtrusive because it's a completely different shape, size and shape. Whereas nearly all the others are semis. This is a detached house. And then I am really confused, and I couldn't find anything in the planning documents. I read the application form, I read everything about why this house appears to be two-tone. So it's described as render, and the windows are described as UPVC, fair enough, and the roof is described as concrete, okay. But the pictures show it as two-tone. Is it two-tone render? I don't know. It just says on the application form it's render. I just feel that the tricksy two-toneness isn't helping it either. It's not camouflaging it in any way.
Very odd.
It looks very odd, but I think it would look even odder if Nathan could zoom us via Google Earth to Carr Road. You could see how incongruous this house would look in that street scene. That's what I think.
Have we got that?
And I think, unfortunately, it can't go through 90 degrees because it won't fit. And as well as that, you've got that some poor person at number whatever it is, has got that blank wall facing.
No, it's the side of the house that's next to it.
Yeah, but there's still the gap.
Yeah, there's a gap, and then that.
Then you've got that. No, yeah, it's tiny.
Tiny house.
And the two don't get left makes it look like a giant bungalow.
Right. We don't like it. We'll skip those comments. The next one is approval of
I think just in case there isn't a covenant on the land, we ought to say the fact that it doesn't fit in, looks like a humbug, and I think we chuck that in as well, just in case when they dig through the paperwork and find that it's probably not gone through, knowing.
Well, looks like a humbug.
It did have to go through the least obtrusive thing would be for it to be what colour.
I think the least obtrusive thing would be to have it attached to the house that it's next to.
It looks like a rather large extension.
Yeah, but that would be.
Well, the applicant is the owner of the house next to it, aren't
Can't see them. Nathan brings them.
Can you bring map with them?
Number one is next to 227. Example of that
Number one, Gar Road, is the gable end of Skipton Road.
Yes.
And that is the owner of this house. Number three, which is the one next door, if it does not own that. But across the back street is the owner.
Actually, more. Oh, big shed is in
Right. So
The house belonging to the owner of it is the one just above the black bit where the black strip went across the back street. There, just above that, at the corner of Gar Road.
So there's Regent Avenue and then Skipton Road, and it's that one on that corner.
It's the one on the
As,
corner of
as you,
yeah,
yeah,
Skipton
yeah,
Road
yeah,
is
yeah,
on Gar Road.
yeah.
Have there been any objections?
Posted
from
many
the
leaflets
next
on
door?
there this last
Number three.
month.
It's only been the planning application's only been into it, so in fairness, number three probably have that down to go check. If they go, even if they go.
Right, shall we move on then? The next one is Unit 3, Regent House, Regent Street, Colne. It's about electric vehicle charging points and surface water drainage scheme. Yeah. Do we just leave it? Yeah.
Big object, I think. Yeah, so I don't think.
The next one is Woodlin, Barrowford Road, Colne. It's full conversion and erection of a single-storey extension to existing garage to create a self-contained annex with a raised terrace to the rear and the erection of a new detached triple garage with gates, games room above. It's in light pink.
Chair.
Yeah, it's where you used to work, isn't it?
Eh?
It's where you used to work.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, it is where I used to work. It was a children's home for children with special needs. I think I was trying to think when I saw this on our planning list yesterday, how many bedrooms there are in that house.
7.
Is there 7? How do you know? What on there? Look, give me a bit of glory. And there's 7 bedrooms. I was actually thinking there was 8, but yeah, you're probably right.
Will be if this gets passed.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, it don't really matter, I don't suppose, until another planning application might come in. I wonder what they were going to do with it, you know. Above the garage now, that was the office, and it was quite a big space. and then I think it's a double garage. Yeah,
Wanting a triple garage. A new
yeah,
triple
yeah, yeah.
It's changing the bit above the existing garage into another bedroom,
Yeah,
which I'm sure made it 8. And I can't remember what they were doing with the underneath the garage, but it makes, when you look at the existing plan and the new plan, it makes more sense of how it goes together. And then I don't know whether it's on that, but if Nathan could just scroll down to bring it up. No, and there's a detached garage in the front. I say front garden. It's front yard. It's a bit of a overgrown jumble at the minute with 3 or 4 cars dotted about. But this will make, if you discount Leach House at the beginning, there's this one. Forgotten what he calls it, Frank Belshaw's, and then West Lynn. So there's just 3 big houses. I mean, this, provided it does what it says on the tin, as they say, that it will be rendered to match the existing. I'm guessing it's probably a 20s or 30s built house.
yeah. I think
That's what it looks like. Provided it all matches in, I can't see that there are objections.
So we're saying no comment.
No comment. It's the same as the other houses.
It
on
garden's plenty big enough to accommodate anyway.
It is, yeah. It is. Okay, is that okay for all the planning? 20, there's an item 21.
I move standing orders. Yeah. Gone past 9.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, we'll
Not
suspend
big enough
them.
again.
Oh, smack me. Smack me. Have you got this letter? This extra?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've had a request from Mike Williams
Mm.
for a contribution for I think it's 2 new
Digital,
board
Polar.
digital boards, you know,
Totems.
like
stand them. I can't stand them. They're a waste of time.
Sarah wants to-
Yes.
So we just had Cone Bid, and this is a really sad tale, really, actually, because we thought that this was such a good idea. It was paid for by the sort of, what was it, the COVID High Street something fund. Actually, bizarrely, the EU ended up paying for these, and we thought they'd be excellent. I was really pro this, and then the vandalism started, and it started really quickly. I have to say the lower one was meant to be by the station, but then there were problems with Network Rail, so it was put on that piece of land by Tubbs. But they were both been equally vandalised relentlessly. And it's so sad because Arcombe Junior Council has put its little posters there, and they were pleased to see their anti-littering posters. You know, there's an opportunity for community communication. There's opportunity for business promotion, event promotion. But I just think ultimately they've been so much trouble. So we had this big discussion, and I tried to say, could we keep the one by Hartley Square and not have 2? Get rid of the one by Tubbs because it's in the wrong place anyway. Could we keep one and weather it? But I was a voice in the wilderness at the Cone Bid. Literally, it was just me. They were like, no, it's been a disaster. And the vandalism has been relentless. So we sort of almost in a sense, unlike, you know, with planning applications, what will it look like? We already know what'll happen. We'll have more vandalism. So Cone Bid just said they wouldn't pay a penny piece towards it. I was trying to argue, could it just be £2,600 or whatever it is, £2,800 for one? But they said no. So on that basis, already the maths has now crept up. So if you're all really keen in this room, it's a lot more money than that first column. And I'll leave it to you to discuss. But that's the position from the code bit.
Right. Anybody want to say anything? Did you want to say something?
Oh, well, I was just going to say, I do not find them very pretty. And they're full of vandalism, graffiti, often enough. And the one down at the bottom, it's on a lovely little piece of green space. And when it appeared, I was quite disappointed. That would be ideal. And the one in Hartley Square, no problem. But I think we're going to be having more and more costs incurred if we do get one.
Dorothy?
Can I ask, do you know, or does anybody know, if these businesses that advertise benefit from those boards, like the one in Hartley Square?
I think the point is that they've never really had the opportunity to, because every time, so they've advertised events, they've advertised bid stuff, you know, things that are relevant to them, but for individual businesses to advertise them,
Right.
they never
right.
even got to that point because it was
So-
always breaking down,
so
it was never working.
Businesses aren't interested then, do you think?
Well, I have to say,
They haven't had the opportunity.
as a business owner, I don't think that would be worth my while to pay to advertise on
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
I think there are other better
Yeah,
ways to
yeah,
advertise,
yeah.
basically.
Yes,
Thank you.
Andy?
Yeah, the one on Hartley Square, whenever I've seen it, this time of year it's been fantastic. But when you get to summer, I found there's always a lot of sun glare on the screens. So it's either turning black or, like say, if it's been vandalised and you're looking at it, giving it, is that it's supposed to be looking like that or is it broken? But I think, as a general, I think they're all a good idea. But I just don't think we're in a situation, especially financially with the council, that we can afford to pay £5,500 or £8,000 or whatever it's going to be up to. But that's my opinion.
Any other views?
Just got one little contribution. Obviously, we've talked about town council doesn't sound terribly keen. The bid's not very keen. And I, as delegated authority of the spending of the Cone area money, I'm not very keen either. So that's it. Forget that.
Yeah, but can I that we decline to take off?
Okay. So can somebody second that? Patricia and I think Alice. All those in favour of saying thank you, but no thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Any other business? Any other business?
Yes, there is just one thing. One of the companies that comes to do the ghost hunts in Town Hall, I think it was Haunted World, they have offered to do one for free for officers and councillors. If we wanted to do that. So I thought I would just mention it, just to see. It's free. Yeah. So Haunted Worlds that do the ghost hunts, they do ghost hunting. I mean, they have actually offered to do one just for staff and councillors. Apparently,
Can I
there's
suggest?
ones in here.
Oh, some in
the
here.
basement.
Can I suggest if we do it, we combine it with a stock take of all the alcohol?
There might be some side of slush. Oh, right. What's it? Does it have to be a special cider or any cider?
It transforms cider. It is modern parts, elevates it to a new level.
Yeah,
All right, yeah.
All right. Okay. Yeah, we will. We can do some tasting. Yeah.
I'm so keen on science love. I actually started looking on the internet second hand.
Yeah.
Good job.
Oh, turn it off. Right. I'll close the meeting now. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, 2000.
Yeah.